In the 1939 film, The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy's dog, Toto, pulls back a curtain to reveal the wizard to be just an ordinary man, operating machinery that projects a gigantic, ghostly, and intimidating image of his face. The wizard had built his reputation using technology that no one in the merry old land of Oz understood. Today, there's a technology impacting customer experience that few understand: algorithms. My guest this week is Dennis Wakabayashi, and he is on a mission to help people understand how marketing fits into modern CX and how technology is changing the landscape. This week on Next in Queue, we discuss the 3 algorithms that shape CX, the fundamental change in social media marketing professionals need to be aware of, the surprising name that might become the next MySpace, how ChatGPT will change CX in unexpected ways, where revenue leaks occur in the customer journey, and the CX leadership alignment strategy that works. Let's get to it.
Welcome to Next in Queue, the podcast for contact center and customer experience professionals. Next in Queue is brought to you by Happy 2 Vision. Eliminate blind spots and see right through every conversation with Happy 2 Vision. Learn more at happitu.com. Now, here's your host, Rob Dwyer.
Thanks for joining another episode of Next in Queue. My name is Rob Dwyer. Today, I have the distinct pleasure of being joined by Dennis Wakabayashi. Dennis, thank you so much for joining. How are you today?
I'm fantastic now that I'm here, Rob. It's been a long day, but you're the highlight of my afternoon, so thank you, sir.
Oh, feels so good. Feels so good to be the highlight of someone's day. We are going to talk about marketing's place in CX today. But before we do that, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you and kind of your journey and how you got to doing what you're doing today. Tell us how you got started in this.
I don't know if it's much of a journey as much as it is an awakening. I spent 35 years in advertising and marketing, spending so much time crafting and blasting messages to unknown customers. And realizing that known customers' relevancy, maybe I spent too much time on social media, made me empathize with human beings more. And I realized there was a better way to speak to people. And to the industry, advertising and marketing industry's credit, we didn't have the tools until recently to be personalized. But once you saw things like Netflix personalizing suggestions, I don't know about you, Rob, but I remember the first time I asked that thing to recommend some movies, and I was like, how does this thing know that I love Breakfast at Tiffany's and Big Trouble in Little China? Like, I'm in. I think that was the awakening for me. And ever since, I've been trying to help others as well as myself create messages or conversations with human beings at scale.
First of all, does anyone not like Breakfast at Tiffany's and Big Trouble in Little China? I don't trust those people.
For real.
You're
100%.
right. Big data has really changed the way that marketing works. And I think Google and Facebook are also great examples of that, right? Super targeted. And so that's changed the role of marketing and marketers, I think, pretty significantly. And I don't think anyone's better equipped to talk about that than you. So thanks for being here.
All right. Well, we'll see. Your mileage may vary.
So CX is a really broad space, right? I know that I have this conversation often. A lot of people think like customer service and CX get confused, and they do. That's not CX. It's part of it, but it's not it. Marketing, I think, often gets left out of the equation. So let's talk about how does marketing fit into the CX equation?
Rob, this whole year I've been on a mission to help people understand this, and I'll say where a lot of confusion comes around customer experience, ironically, is a lack of empathy for the work we do, for the tools we use. So many people define customer experience from their own self-centric point of view. I do customer care, I do marketing, and I would suggest, number one, that I don't have the full answer, but I have an entirely different take on this whole conversation, which is, I don't know what customer experience is, but I can tell you how the vast majority of it comes into reality. On the internet, if you look behind the curtain, there are three wizards. There are three algorithms that are shaping all of the experiences that we perceive if we're on our phones or on a computer screen or on a television. Those three experiences are algorithms based around reputation, there's algorithms based on reach, and there's algorithms based on relationships, more commonly known as social for reputation, advertising, marketing, search for reach, and CRM for relationships. Certainly, we can go into the esoteric nuances of customer experience, but for those who are trying to drive revenue, there are three algorithms or three experiences that matter. And marketing, operations, finance, accounting, sales, all of those functions, customer success, they all fall within those three experiences. And when you have a niche or a group that leverages one specific algorithm more consistently than others, you end up with a department or a team focused on a particular experience. But CX as a whole, to me, is just reputation, reach, and relationship experiences.
That's fascinating. So let's dive into social. Let's start there. Number one, how has social changed? I mean, you talked about that being a big part of that. How has that changed how we approach building a reputation?
I would say this. Let's further get nerdy, Rob, and talk about change. Change discusses a time period or a window. It's always changes. The velocity of change is faster or slower. In 2020, TikTok vastly changed and accelerated change compared to the 5 years prior, but 5 years before that, we had Facebooks and those sorts of things. Here's what I would say I think is at the heart of your question, which is, what is the change now that we need to pay attention to? And that is, up until TikTok, algorithms for reputation were based on associations between people, networking, peer-to-peer, person-to-person, groups, relationships, human relationships. TikTok's algorithm is based on your interest, and it doesn't care who you know or don't know. It serves you up content based on what you're interested in. So social in 2020 took a significant change to being impersonal, which is prior it was personal. And that little nuance throws a lot of people off when it comes to building a reputation, because they have to grapple with the new paradigm of being popular means being impersonal.
Yeah, so a TikTok is an interesting thing to think about for me for two reasons. So the first being exactly what you're talking about. They changed the dynamic of how we interact with content, because now it's not just who I'm friends with or who I'm connected with, but it really is just similar to Netflix, right? You like this movie, so I think you will also like this other movie. And that's how TikTok is serving up content to people. But I also wonder, is there some risk with building a big following on TikTok because of some potential government intervention in that platform. I mean, that may be a lot of politics and a lot to unpack that we may not have time for. But I wonder, do you have concerns about TikTok as a platform, and are companies too reliant on social platforms?
You said a couple of poignant things there. One is as you may know, I teach at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I teach digital marketing there. One of the first key things we teach our students is social media audiences are not your own. So unless you convert those to a relationship that you own through a CRM, you are at risk of not managing your strategy accurately. So there's that. So you're right about that. Two, I would say that the governmental changes, whether I think you're talking about foreign governments, however, legislation, policy changes, censorship on Twitter has been a hot topic. These things do affect us. And I think the important thing to know is that algorithms are not our friends. They're our tools, or we're their tools, depending upon which side of the awareness you are. So I think you're right to be cautionary about dedicating to an algorithm. I think an algorithm should be viewed as a tool that should be used. And I try to teach my kids, take care of your tools, but you do need the right tool for the right job if you want to be crafting experiences that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's good to learn those new tools, right? I mean, if you never started using power tools and you're still just using your hammer and your screwdriver, it's going to be awfully hard to build really complicated things.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how search fits into that marketing relationship. So we talked about that being part of reach. Has anything fundamentally changed with search? It seems like for the most part that Google and Facebook have really kind of owned that. Facebook is social, but from an ad perspective and just search, it seems like Google has owned that space for a long time. Is that changing at all?
I'll tell you this, unpopular opinion, Google is about to be the next MySpace or Facebook of the internet.
Wow. Okay, now let's talk.
Here's what I'll tell you. Change is inevitable and constant. TikTok demonstrated this. TikTok was the first canary in the mine shaft that said how we think about our relationships is not the primary way that the internet works. When we switched to instead of searching for things or looking at things from our friends, TikTok just fed us what we wanted to know. And it beat Pokemon Go as the most downloaded app in like 3 months. That was a sign. On November 30th, when ChatGPT launched, that was sort of like the warning sign. But then recently, when Microsoft announced its $10 billion investment into ChatGPT to incorporate it into Bing and a Microsoft Word, I don't know how else to say it then. Whether we like it or not, the way we want to search is with ChatGPT and Microsoft, and the way we used to search is over. Like there'll be hobbyists who like search or who like Facebook or who like those old algorithms. I like listening to records. I have 2 turntables. I DJ on 2 turntables, but Google's going to be a hobby or legacy thing that we think about search in that way. Now, in Google's defense, what nobody's talking about in the internet right now is that Lambda was already up and running a year ago, quote unquote, sentient. So, we'll see. But Google as we know it has no place anymore in our lives.
So I'm glad that you brought up ChatGPT. I recently just shared on LinkedIn a video. It's a Mint Mobile ad and they actually asked ChatGPT to write the ad and to do it in Ryan Reynolds' voice and to cuss it. Like they had all these
Yep,
parameters.
I saw it.
And it wasn't a bad ad. It certainly wasn't the best ad that his company has put out. But I'm wondering, aside from search, what does ChatGPT, how does that fit into marketing and how does that fit into CX?
All right, I'll tell you. ChatGPT is going to reveal or unleash or develop or implement, however you want to describe it, a watermark. So will the other AI engines inside their text. It'll be invisible to the humans. But the bots will know if the bots said it first, and they'll skip over that. So what that means for us going forward is you will either be the source of the information or you will be the user of the information. Creatives, content creators, those who continue to be a source of information will be highly valuable to the search engines, to the algorithms. And those who use the tools to regurgitate variations on already known topics or subjects will be less valuable. I think we'll see a surplus of content, a surplus of knowledge. I think for the first time in humanity, everyone's IQ is going to jump about 50 points and using AI, and there'll be a surplus of it. And at the end of the day, marketers who try to build strategy using ChatGPT or try to create content ideas around ChatGPT will simply be viewed as irrelevant in the algorithms. And the algorithms will seek out content creators like yourself or me or others who are still bringing things from the real world into the virtual world.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are jumping onto this and saying, well, ChatGPT is going to eliminate all of these different fields because it can just create the content. And I'm not convinced that that is the way that things are going to go. I, like you, feel like that the content that is created, although it was recently discovered that CNET has been using ChatGPT to write articles for them for like 2 months now, and those articles were performing. So I do think we need some time to get caught up into like a lot of technological advances. Like, how does the rest of the world get caught up to understand how we use this tool and how we recognize the work that has been produced by it, and what do we think about it?
Here's something I'll say controversial for your podcast. Robert, you a parent?
I am.
All right, here's what I think. I think parents are going to have an advantage. And here's why. I myself, being a teacher, and I was also a Cub Scout, Boy Scout leader as my son was in the Scouts, and I have 3 children. And what I can tell you is I spend a lot of time investing in my children to teach them lessons. And they do well at certain tasks. As an example, some people's children can cook. My son is a gold medal competitive chef. He learned that from training of a parent. And if you treat ChatGPT or these algorithms like your children, and you invest in them and you coach them and you spend time to listen, and most importantly, if your algorithm feels heard and seen, they will perform extraordinarily better for you than the random person who's plugging a bunch of questions trying to get them to do stuff.
Dennis, did you just encourage us to have empathy for the algorithm and like really care for it?
All I can say is the AI is going to know. Back in the day, my suggestion to your listeners: make a donation to a algorithm or an AI charity of some sort now, because later it's going to know who was on his side and who wasn't.
Okay, you heard it here, folks. Make sure that you go donate, get on the good side of AI, because it's going to remember where you were. So let's talk about this, the next phase, right? So we've been talking about, as you laid out recently, we've been talking about the consideration phase, right? Where people are thinking about your brand, understanding your reach. Let's talk about the commitment phase.
Yeah.
And how marketing, or does marketing have an impact with brands and their prospective buyers in that phase, the commitment phase?
Let's talk about those two. The places, the two experiences, the two intersections throughout the three experiences of reputation, reach, and relationship, where the advantage is for business, for revenue. So let's remember this, Rob. Consider this. Money is a human element. Algorithms don't need it. Where the algorithms leak money is when they have to hand off between each other. So you have your reputation algorithms, but when they have to pass the ball to the reach algorithms, or let's say the customer journey moves from one algorithm to another, from reach to relationship, as an example. There's a handoff, a baton pass of a moment a customer is allowed to choose of their own free will, and a time that the customer commits their money to a brand. Those are sort of interesting because it's where humans still have the most interaction with the algorithms. And for that reason, money seems to leak from those two areas of the customer journey more than others. So I always try to encourage leaders who are trying to sell their programs into an organization, focus on these two areas where the revenue probability is higher, because that revenue is what is the North Star or the aligning metric that internal leaders can galvanize themselves around. You can't sell a customer journey into an organization. I don't care how many people have said that they can or it's been done, it doesn't work. You've got to sell the 2 points of revenue that make the most sense to the constituents within inside an organization if you want to leverage empathy, humans, algorithms in a harmonious ecosystem of business.
Yeah, you're so right. I had a recent episode where we were talking about really showing the ROI of your CX efforts, and it's critical to the C-suite that you know how to talk the numbers, the revenue, because that I'm aware of, no CEO has just gone, yes, let's do a customer journey exercise just for the kick of it because I want to know. That's not a thing.
No, it's not, and they don't end up knowing anything. All a CEO really knows is money comes from humans, not from technology.
Yeah.
Technology is a cost.
It is. It absolutely is. So I'm wondering if I'm in a marketing role, or let's say I've got an organization, I've got my marketing team. Should that be aligned with, and when I say aligned, should that fall under like a CX team? Depending on scale, obviously, but do you feel like marketing belongs under that umbrella of CX, or how should that relationship work?
Yeah, I get this question a lot about org structures, and honestly, most enterprises get it entirely wrong. Here's how I've seen it work, and mind you, I only share this knowledge because I built and tried and failed in different levels of measure on customer experience strategy and programs at AT&T, Wells Fargo, McDonald's, Boston Market, and FedEx, just to name a few.
No one's ever heard of any of those companies, Dennis.
I've been in the trenches and I've seen, the human element, the technologists, the C-suite. I see how this thing works. Here's the only way I've been able to come up with the strategy that works. CXO or CMO plus a CTO, plus a COO, your C-suite, all of them, they have incentives that are their traditional incentives within the operations of a business. And those foundational traditions of business operations should not be changed by CX, which is always what a lot of CX leaders talk about, transformation. But I don't think that is healthy for a brand. What I will say is those leaders can get the revenue value, the benefits the organization can for the business, and the revenue aligns to their incentives. And so I would prescribe this. Customer touch points, each touch point should have its own specialized team with its own incentives and KPIs for that touch point. You then need one CX leader for each journey or persona. So think of that as a customer advocate or a representation, a person who connects the business to the outside world. That person crafts the journey for the teams. That person aggregates the metrics that are important for each of those teams into a set of key metrics. Reputation, reach, and relationship are great metrics. And those metrics are shared up to the C-suite. What that does is if you have those three metrics and you focus on these two key areas, customer choice, customer commitment, those two places, customer commitment and customer choice, allow your C-suite to have clear line of sight to reallocate their budgets to mine for more money. And so that's the ecosystem. Every touch point can have its own team. Marketing director can be over all those teams, but a marketing director who assigns one CX leader per persona and asks for the right metrics is like wildfire in terms of scaling efficiency revenue that comes from CX.
But to do that, then you have to develop personas and do a good job at it, right?
And to be fair, your personas have already developed themselves. You have to reveal them.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. You're right. They have developed themselves. So I guess what I'm thinking about is how does that work as a company is scaling, right? That is something that's really, you can create that structure if you're the likes of AT&T or Wells Fargo, right? Some of those companies that you mentioned, they have a ton of resources. They've got the people power. But what if you're a much smaller organization, a startup, and you don't have that kind of resources or people power to put towards that? How do you go about managing that? And then when do you start to make changes as you scale up?
So smaller companies have it so much easier. Same rules apply. It can be a one person show. Just got to know your persona, got to know your key touch points. Even at the most basic level, you just need one reputation touch point, one reach touch point, and one relationship touch point. Could be one social media channel, Google for search, paid search, and then your CRM. Those three things, if you pay attention to how those are performing against your persona, then it's all back to storytelling, narrative, creative, and trend to drive interest, engagement, and revenue.
Absolutely. You know, we have talked about a lot of crazy stuff here. You have really brought the fire today, and you've said some things.
Rob.
You've said some things that might be controversial, and I'm here for it. What have we not talked about that is burning on your mind the last couple of weeks? What is really maybe new and exciting to you that you think is worth a quick conversation about?
Sure. I would say here's my hot take on CX. Here's what I think. People are not looking, and it's going to come out of nowhere, and I think is fascinating to me. So we see this transformation happening with ChatGPT and OpenAI on the internet. People go in, they have a question, They get an answer instead of getting 10 links that take 10 minutes each, that take 100 minutes to process as a human. We in 1 minute get the exact answer we want. Here's the new hotness. Companies that employ ChatGPT, OpenAI, NLP to their internal systems, their wikis, their chat, their Slack, their knowledge bases, and give that power to customer care agents will decrease. They'll turn their customer care, same way as we saw in search. Imagine what used to take you 100 minutes to solve a customer problem. It takes 1 minute. Imagine the retention, the lack of the decrease in escalations. I think companies that employ this technology internally instead of worrying about it externally with their marketing are going to be the ones who fortify themselves in 2023 to be the premier CX brands.
Yeah, you touched on something that you and I are both on the same page. I think the challenge is going to be, do those companies have the right documentation to make it work really well? Because I think that is the challenge that a lot of smaller companies have, is they're still dealing with tribal knowledge. The things that are current and up to date aren't actually documented anywhere. But if they are, then I am with you. If you can geofence that technology to your internal systems, and it's not just even for customer facing, right? It can be employee facing for questions related to HR. If you need to know, hey, when do I need to enroll in insurance? Maybe questions related to how much PTO do I have? Like if you can get access to all that type of data, you can really lessen the load on the people who are typically fielding those kinds of questions and make it really easy and a good experience for your employees, whether they're getting answers for themselves or your customers. Both are possible.
You get it, Rob. You get it.
I really feel like this is where it can go, right? The chatbot has been bad for a long time. And I feel like ChatGPT is going to fundamentally change what you can do with a chatbot. And a chatbot can work internally, externally. It doesn't matter. It's just about, does it have the right data? And so if you've got the right data, I mean, I think today even you can see with ChatGPT in version 3, the data is dated. So if you ask it a question about something that has some fluctuation to it, it may get the answer wrong.
Oh, it's off trend. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't have access to the internet in real time. But if you ensure that it's getting the right data, it can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Come on, Lambda. We're rooting for you, Google.
I don't know how many people are like really rooting for Google. I am a Google fan, but I think it's also nice that there's another alternative out there that's challenging them, because ultimately that's where the innovation comes from, right? This upstart that says, hey, we can do something cool that you haven't shown anyone you can do yet.
Yeah. Totally.
Even though they have been working on it. I think it's also going to be an interesting thing to find out, like from an ethics standpoint, because that was kind of Google's hesitation. How we go about managing that technology. And it's a constantly evolving question when something new comes out. How do we manage that?
Yeah, well, you get to the core right there of the whole issue of the whole thing is AI for knowledge is great. AI for how to think, scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what? We'll figure it out just like we have with calculator. You're of an age that you probably remember your math teacher saying, well, you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket everywhere you go. And today we laugh at that because we literally do have calculators in our pockets everywhere we go. And so that changes how we need to deal with math for kids in school, because those things are there. The tools are there. It's just about how we utilize them. And I think we'll see that same kind of evolution.
100%. 100.19997.7776%, actually.
That won't fit all on the screen. It's too many trailing decimals there. Dennis, it has been such a great opportunity to talk to you. This is really exciting. If someone wanted to pick your brain for themselves, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
DennisWakabayashi.com, or I'm on Twitter at CXCreator.
Fantastic. And we'll make sure the website is in the liner notes. Everybody can just go there and go directly to the link. Dennis, has been a good time, buddy. I really appreciate it. And now I feel like I need to queue up Breakfast at Tiffany's. I think it's on Prime.
And Big Trouble in Little China, Rob.
Well, okay, that one I've got to find. I'm pretty sure Breakfast at Tiffany's I have on DVD if I'm willing to go back to that resolution.
Big Trouble in Little China is still in the lineup there on Netflix, I think.
Okay, well, there you go. I might have to queue them both up this weekend.
All right.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks, Rob.
Next in Queue is brought to you by Happy To and is produced by me, Rob Dwyer. If you enjoy this podcast, please by all means subscribe and or rate this podcast in iTunes or your favorite podcast app. But more importantly, please tell just one person about this podcast. Word of mouth is the best way for people to discover new content. As always, thanks for listening.